We're recording. Hello, welcome back to another Naked Startup edition of Le Bureau Americain. I'm Nate with Antoine, and we're having another weekly meeting as we try to build a fantastic collaborative office coaching experience. So, Antoine, how's it going?
Going great. Had a fantastic week. My mother fell and hurt herself on Monday. My
Oh,
daughter
no.
had a day of being a teenager on Tuesday. But otherwise, and it's just been crazy busy trying to help her out with her budding music career. So
Yeah, the music career thing is great. Your mom is okay, though.
yeah, she's fine.
Okay.
She's fine.
Yeah,
It's more
yeah.
fear than anything, but
Those falls are scary, and I've had to deal with
yeah,
that
they
with my
are.
mom over the last 5 to 10 years, quite a bit, and it
Mhm.
is not fun. And there's severe consequences as people get older with falling. So yeah,
We're lucky this time. I'm trying to tell her, be careful. I'm not going to be lucky like that every time. So yeah.
yeah, no, for sure. Jeez,
But yeah, no, she's fine.
good.
And Isabel's okay. She had one voice lesson yesterday, two voice lessons today. I've been driving around Paris all day doing that, but it's fantastic to hear her sing, so it's great. But yeah, that means we're not moved forward a lot on the presentation we need to do Tuesday. But I think we're good anyway. I think we know what we want, what we say. We just need to take the time to put it together.
Yeah. So we're talking specifically about our meeting we're going to have with the French American Chamber of Commerce next week. So I went ahead and put a rough outline together in Drive, I think, that just basically sort of gives what my perspective is, which is stating that it's not necessarily a problem, but it is there's a bonus to the sort of positive and optimistic and do it without asking mental space that an American entrepreneur occupies. Basically that, hey, look, okay, so we'll just start from the top. There's an infinite pool of innovative entrepreneurial talent in France and Europe, as well as in the United States, and certainly all over the world, but we're not necessarily speaking to the whole world yet with this model. So, but I want to establish that as something that we firmly believe, because we do. We're not doing Le Bureau out of some sort of superiority complex about the American way of doing things, because again, like anybody who's reading the news, you're like, what's going on with America right now? And I feel the same way. So we're kind of trying to focus on, I'm trying to focus on establishing the reality, the world of common day. It's sort of a Joseph Campbell style hero's journey narrative in a lot of ways, because it's like, hey, look, we've got this great pool of talent. The reason why the US leads, quote unquote, in innovation is because of a cultural advantage. And I put that in quotes also because I don't want it to be aggressive or, again, superior, but it is a matter of like, we all just have this dauntless positivity, confidence, and optimism. People here think, I have an idea, I might as well try it because it could work. I mean, we have a cultural problem in this country, at least in my perspective, in that most people think that they could become millionaires next year, so no one wants to raise taxes for anything. But that's actually kind of a good thing when it comes to being creative, being energized, and wanting to build and innovate. Because instead of asking, well, wait, when is somebody going to tell me I can do this, or my ideas are dumb until it's validated by X academic body or X government body or X cultural body, we just kind of go. So that's sort of what we're saying is, hey, we have this cultural thing, and then I just sort of segue directly into what does Le Bureau do? So it's coaching, activities, individual counseling, and critical mass team collaboration, which I think you and I have talked about a lot. We haven't hit as hard in these video meetings yet, but there's that critical mass section of it that's important. And we provide a culture shift that empowers everybody and imbues them with passion for their work. I think that's the other cool little wrinkle in the American thing, is that while there are countless tens of millions of people in this country who are not passionate about their work because they are stuck with jobs that are underpaying and a bunch of other issues, a lot of the exciting things that can come out of this place is that you can have an idea that you're excited about and just go for it and feel excited about it the whole time and take that chance. So then the next slide or slides is how we do it, which is basically that this is mutable or bespoke, I guess is a better word, but we're going to have a coaching platform, but we're going to do a lot of creating around the people we're working with, because that's the only way this will work, according to every conversation I've had. This has to be something that becomes personal, that becomes real, and that touches each individual participant in ways that, a one-size-fits-all thing is not going to work. So it's laying out the concept that we have discussed in previous meetings of what the coaching looks like, then why we do it, because we've lived the change. And then that's where, we'll talk about your experience, Antoine. We can talk about my experience that honestly, like working with you in the past changed the way that I think about work. And, I would think that it's beneficial to pretty much anybody to go through some version of this, in as much as it shows you how quickly you can fail and still succeed, right? That failing fast is better than working really hard for a long time on one thing that you won't change ever and failing later. So anyway, so we'll talk about that. We'll talk about other anecdotal evidence we can. Hopefully we can gather some interesting testimonials from the FACC. We'll throw something in like that. Then we would move on to the benefit, because we aren't doing this simply to make money or to make YouTube videos or just to, we're not doing it just for our own self-aggrandizement or benefit. This is really about all of the ways that it benefits different stakeholders. And thank you for grading this out, because I probably should have. But yeah, ultimately, I think that the big picture is this is good for the world, because we live in a time where we're so, especially with COVID and everything, we are so uniquely connected across the globe and so uniquely capable of working remotely and still accomplishing great things, that there's no reason for us to be operating with these boundaries of nations, of all these things, when it comes to innovating, especially to solve the problems that confront all of us, right? Climate change, income inequality, racism, all these sorts of issues that we can innovate on. And of course, lighter issues too, it doesn't just have to be big social causes, but we can solve a lot of the world's problems by putting all of our heads together. And we can put all of our heads together, not just through big bodies like the United Nations, which was the only way to do it for generations. We now can just say like, well, hey, I know people in France and in Germany, and if we put our heads together, we can come up with a solution for something. So that's part of that, the big picture. And I'm probably being a little bombastic, but why not? The next is that it really benefits established corporations and businesses by strengthening their teams. You have better workers who are more confident in their work, more excited to work, and more interested in, I guess, reaching out and getting the help that they need, so that you're actually going to have better, more valuable productivity out of people who know that they can go, oh, I can actually talk to my team of expat Americans who I worked with through Le Bureau on this problem. They might crack it for me, or just rotate the Rubik's Cube in a way that I see it differently than I'm looking at it, because I'm in my own little box. So there's that perspective power that can be really great for any business that's already in business. I mean, imagine the idea that problems that take your current systems team like 6 months to solve could be solved in 4 or 2, because suddenly they're reaching out and getting, sorry, the dogs are going to bark because it's a dog day and we're at home.
All right.
Rocket, please be quiet.
Hi, Rocket.
Hey, bud. Shh. But yeah, it's giving a different perspective on this. So you could reach out to people who have never thought about your problem, and as it works with a lot of issues in life, sometimes a detached, objective viewpoint will lead you to find the solution to your own problem just a little faster. So there's that
thing, Rio, if I can hit this here. One thing too is by creating this ownership mentality, you start becoming, instead of someone who complains, there's this problem in European organizations that, I've seen a lot of that, this patronizing mentality by which, management patronizes employees, and employees in return respond quite directly by being a bit infantile, or responding. You treat them like children, they behave like children, and it's self-fulfilling prophecy thing. This sense of ownership also comes from it basically leads to proactively creating psychological safety.
Yeah. Well, because it's going to ultimately imbue workers with a sense of stake in the project, with a sense.
But it's not about just exactly. But also because with that mentality of stake in the project of, okay, we're here to try to make money, and I'm here to try to make money, and I'm here to try to make success for the company, not so that my boss will like me and give me a raise,
right?
So that we will be rich, so that I'll get a raise, so that basically as if I was the owner. And with that mentality, you get into the mode of storytelling of being able to help management. Proactively help management and governance evolve to create the psychological safety you need to be productive.
Because the default mode for many of us is to be an employee somewhere and be led. And that's fine, but we all I'm sure have an anecdote of a boss or another who you follow their lead for a while and go, I don't know if this person knows what they're doing. I feel like I kind of see things that they're not even looking for, and when I try to bring them up, they don't want to hear it or whatever it is.
And in reverse, you have the anecdote of being a leader and going, everybody is looking at me, and they want me to tell them that I know what I'm doing.
Yeah.
They need that from me, and they need me to pretend I know what I'm doing when I don't, and they need me to tell them what to do. And I'm not superhuman. I can't always do it. So sometimes I just throw things out, and I don't know if it's right, and I have to pretend. It's
there's a false paternalism that happens by default, which is, okay, well, I'm a manager, so I guess we should probably tackle this.
And it's not due to the managers being wrong, or being paternalistic, or to the employees being infantile. It's due to a structure that creates that.
Yeah, it's a cultural hierarchy that's built into the way that we do business, and because of just decades and hundreds of years of the way these things have worked. So
exactly.
So we'll build that. The third benefit that I list is that it really benefits individuals, whether they're individual workers, managers, whatever, because you get a sense of meaning that isn't just driven by advancing or by competing with your coworkers. It actually shows you that you can succeed through collaboration and get way further. And I know that's like kindergarten level sort of stuff, where it's like, hey, if you share, everybody gets, a rising tide lifts all ships. But it is true. And especially when it comes to a project or an innovation or a business, you're going to go further if everybody is working toward a common goal together, because it benefits them and because they enjoy it, because they feel a love for the common goal that they're going toward. And it is too often that the culture either makes people feel like they're not directly invested in said common goal, or that the common goal isn't going to benefit them, so why bother? So there are lots of, there are all these sort of cultural issues that come in that hinder our ability to say, oh, it really does matter if we get here, And of course, this is not foolproof, because there are some tasks where you're going to be like, well, I know exactly what this, like cleaning the toilets is cleaning the toilets, and someone has to do it, and it's not a common goal.
But then again, there's the famous quote. You remember the quote from the days of the Moon Project, where Kennedy was visiting some kind of factory, some NASA factory, and and there's a janitor there, and he's asking the janitor, "Hey, so hi, I'm Jack, and what do you do?" And the guy tells him, "Mr. President, I'm helping put a man on the moon."
Yeah, yeah, and that is a cultural issue, right? That is the culture of saying everyone here is important because everyone is. And it's not just lip service. It's not just outward facing marketing for customers. It's actually creating that culture. So
natural mission.
There you go.
Yeah.
Then we would move forward to where this can go, which is more, a just how big, because we're talking about big ideas. I want to share the big dream, which is, this starts with this online coaching. It can move on to physical spaces. It can move on to coaching in person where, hey, we gotta take a train to Switzerland and go to an office and coach. And then we also have a Le Bureau location in Paris or in the environs there around where people can come in office and they can get these coaching experiences actively or passively through the culture that we've created in that space.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And yeah, I mean, these are good points to add that it applies to businesses, governments, it's startups, to established or late stage businesses. It's everything. Like anybody can really gain something out of this because it's not a temporally linked thing. It's time agnostic. It's always better to free yourself of kind of the roadblocks that we have culturally in place. So the where it can go is our big dream section. And then it's what we want, which effectively from this meeting, and I'm sure you'll have more to add, but I think that we want connections to businesses that FACC knows that might be interested in this. We'd like connections to expat Americans living in France and Europe that they know of. We would love connections to potential coaches. I'm sure they know some people. We would also like connections to government resources in France, as well as anything in the United States that might be helpful. I mean, organizations like FACC, people who might back this to help us get more of a running start so that we can really prove this out beyond our own passion of it, which is the important thing. We need to be able to try fast and fail fast if we're going to. I don't think we are, but we should, try fast no matter what. We definitely would like connections to, and something I didn't add here, but I suppose we would probably want connections to international schools, because there's probably graduates going into programs, who want to innovate things, who could be excellent potential candidates. Stuff like that.
Okay.
And then
who we are.
And then I thought briefly who we are. We just throw some brief bios together on you and I, perhaps Simon as well, with his permission. I mean, he's part of the team, even though he's available this week as well. But yeah, who we are, then our contact info, and I was trying to think of what other actionable things. I figured the what we want was good and actionable to say, please send us these specific connections, but you would know better on.
Yeah, I have a few thoughts on that. So this is great. This is great. This is full. I think there's some orders of things that we might want to change.
Yeah.
Let me share you the
totally
bit
fair.
I have. You can see that a lot of it meets up. So starting a bit with a pitch thing. So France has an innovation problem. The startups are derivative, the enterprises are behind, and the public service is paper heavy.
Mm-hmm.
I was going on 3 levels here.
Well, and I like this because this is the stuff you can speak to that I cannot.
Yeah.
I don't have enough experience, nor would I deign to go into a meeting with the FACC being like, France has a problem.
Hey, you got a problem, guys. But, being French, I probably can. It shouldn't have an innovation problem.
Yeah, no.
The population is exceptionally skilled and educated. The startup ecosystem is really well funded and is well supported by business, by the current government. And the government is innovation friendly, and the culture is innovation friendly. France is a very inventive country. The Montgolfier brothers, the Lumière brothers.
We wouldn't have that movie of that train coming at the TV without the Lumière brothers. So,
we've invented a lot of things in France. We have a culture of invention and technology, and yet we seem to be derivative and behind these days. What's missing is sauce, specifically the secret sauce. I think the secret sauce that's missing is the positivity and teamwork, believing in yourself, believing in others, and believing in miracles. Beyond reason. And that's the thing with French people, is that they believe in themselves and in others and in miracles, reasonably so, which means not much.
Yeah, because I could try that, but it's probably not going to work, so I'm not going to bother.
Right. And the point is that it's actually the believing in those things beyond reason. So faith, and not just belief. That's making things, that's the secret sauce of positivity and teamwork that seems to work for the US. This is what makes the American dream, this believing beyond reason. That's the American dream. And it's for everyone. It's not an American thing. But you'll meet a lot of French people like me who have the American dream, but firmly believe it can only happen to them in the US. That's a crying shame. So from this, though, I think once we've explained our basic premise of what we think is going on, the next thing we need to jump into, Nate, is directly jump into who we are.
Okay, that works.
Because you've made a point. It's a debatable point. You need to anchor it with stories. So my thinking was to jump into my story.
Sure.
Jump into our stories. That I grew up in France as an expat. I was bilingual twin, but I was always told I can do better in French schools, which is kind of the problem we're talking about.
Right.
When I moved to the US with zero self-confidence and learned it by osmosis, which gave me happiness in my life. When I returned to France 5 years ago, and I found levels of negativity that were shocking for me coming back from the US. And the shocking meaning it was a shock to my system. It rocked me to the core.
Yeah.
How fashionable it is to denigrate positivity in public. And yet everyone that I was working with secretly, when it was just one-on-one, they craved it. They loved it.
Yeah. Well, because
there was another person in the room
wants to be light and believe, right? Everybody wants to be able to be that. But to the points you've made off video in the past, like there does seem to be a cultural thing of it's like, okay, but you're being like, if you're being that happy, you're being stupid because it's unrealistic to be happy.
We have an expression in French which is un imbécile heureux, okay? A happy imbecile.
Yeah.
There's no expression that says un intelligent heureux. There's no intelligent imbecile, a happy, intelligent person. So yeah, there's a little bit of that issue. But the point is that so that we can't make French people adopt these behaviors that we're talking about without the psychological safety to do so.
Yeah.
That is a principle that's not at work here, and that's a large part of what we need to do. Anyway, I hadn't gone much farther than that. So
cool. No, I mean, I think this framing, and if we just rejigger the order of operations I've got, I think we're good. I mean, I buried the who we are, and that's probably mainly because I lack a self-confidence in what I bring to the table representatively in a bio. And I need to get rid of that myself. But yeah, we can be upfront because your story and experience is very important. And fact of the matter is, I've grown up here. I have serially created things, and it brings me all the joy in my life. Like, the podcasts I do, the web comics that I've written, the sci-fi press that I started, like all of these projects are things that mean something to me. And, they don't have to be gangbusters successful. They've all been successful enough that they're sustainable, and that's beautiful. And I keep trying. You and I have started several things, and we will continue to start things beyond Le Bureau, I'm sure, because we're those kind of people. We're try people. So yeah, cool.
So the next thing I think after the who is the why.
Okay. Yeah.
Start with why, right?
Yeah, I think
why,
so.
how, and then finally what. So the why is. The
why is the why we do it, and the why it's good is after the what, right? Because we don't need to.
This part moves here. Okay.
Yeah.
So there it is. And I think in the why is.
Okay.
Yeah.
Great.
We'll need to trim that. Actually, make it a lot cleaner. But no, there's some things to say there and important things to say. And in the how, so this is more about the secret sauce, I think, because what you're saying here is the what, the suite of mutable, correct-driven dreams, event conversations, and courses. That's still what, and that's a repeat. But what there is the how. And the how, I think, to me is it's got to have a good mix. The one thing I was talking about is the psychological safety part, the ownership mentality. But I think there's a mix of working with individuals on their mental blocks.
They're on overcoming or circumventing their cultural programming.
And more than that, though, in a positive way, probably it's in finding their helping them
find their bliss.
Yeah.
Find your bliss.
Exactly.
It's true. I mean, it's hokey, but it's true.
Well, that's we're hokey incorporated. Hard nosed hokey if we can make it work. But finding their bliss, and that's that part of that, and finding their bliss and deciding on courage.
Yeah. Well said.
Because that's a decision. Being courageous is a decision. It's not an easy one. There's that on the individual level. Working with teams on teamwork.
It's communication skills. It's teamwork. It's transcending sort of the competitive nature of teams that you, whether it's sports or anything else, you want to be the best on the team, and everybody should be the best on the team, and everybody can be the best on the team, I guess is what I'm trying to say, but that's not super clear.
Well,
for this point's purpose.
No, say it differently. What do you mean?
Well, I guess I mean that a lot of times if you're on a team, you are sort of vying for the approval of the team leader. And we would be pushing the idea that you would vie for the approval of everyone, and everyone would be vying for everyone's approval, in as much as that would be a sub-motivator for your work, because you're really in it because the team itself is you, right? You're not separate from the team because you have this shared goal.
Then it's sharing the wins.
Yeah, that's
a large part of this is if you're on a team and you're trying to get noticed as an individual contributor, you're not on a team.
Right. But that's the way that most of even in the States, academia works that way. Like you want to be the kid who gets noticed for. I mean, I guess it depends. Sometimes you don't, but being the A student, you get a special designation. You get to speak at high school graduation, like all sorts of stuff. Like you are set apart.
You get beat up by the jocks too, right?
You get beat up, yeah. But instead of all that, we share it instead of trying to beat everyone else.
Sharing the wins, and there's an aspect also of asking for help. So there's a few things there that I find working, and one of them is definitely putting forth that mentality that the success measures are team success measures. They're the success of the project and not the success of when you set up performance goals for people. If you have individual performance goals, then they're incentivized to maximize that. And whenever it goes against the team goals, the team goals lose.
Right.
So Absolutely. The sharing the wins thing means that truly it's a lot about that. And asking for help is the other part of a team, is that Like in soccer, where they'll say, teamwork means that you pass the ball. But passing the ball is not like, oh, I'll let you share in the glory. Passing the ball is help me.
Right. Yeah. It's
I'm in danger. I'm in trouble. Somebody's there to help, and being ready to help the others, and being, always there when somebody needs help, and always being ready to ask for help is how we win as a team.
Yeah. It's having the vision to see that the goal is not something that one person has to attain.
Well, yeah, and that asking for help is not a sign of weakness. It's the opposite. So,
yeah.
So there's that, and communication mindset is, I would say, we have this thing called feedback culture, which is very tough. The candid feedback stuff, which I teach it, I preach it, and I'm still terrible at it. I hate confrontation, but it's necessary.
Everybody does, but yeah, it breaks down barriers.
Yeah,
if you
that's
actually,
where the courage helps.
So
okay, there's that thing on the working with teams, and then there's the working with systems, companies, organization, governance. And that's on being, there's the customer focus aspects. There's the data driven decision making, which is vital. It's actually, making management and upper management commit to making decisions on data before the data is there.
Right.
Because it's, a lot of companies say, yeah, we're data driven. And what that means is, at some point I ask the people for analysis and for numbers, and they show me numbers, and then I see numbers I don't like, and I go, I don't like this. And everybody panics and tries to fix the number.
Right. Yeah.
That's not being data driven. That's being arbitrary with data.
Yeah. It's being data reactionary, which is not, we can all do that.
Yeah. And the only way to resist that is to do a really, really hard work, which is to, set up and agree ahead of time as to what data you're going to look at and what the numbers need to be.
Right.
When most of the time you don't have enough information to make that decision. So it's taking chances and risks on saying, well, we're going to do with that, and we're going to have to keep adjusting it, and creating psychological safety.
Yes. Yeah, it is, because that creating psychological safety is the at least the declawing of the hierarchical culture, if not the abolishment of it. You're still going to have a boss, but the idea that you would no longer feel that if they say something incorrect, that you should not speak to the incorrectness of it in the moment when you know that you can. To your point about being data driven, it's like, actually everything that I'm seeing on the back end says X, you're saying Y. Why don't we change this before we get to next year's data dump, where we find out that it is Y, because I'm seeing what's going on. So it is, this is kind of an important, it's sort of an important nonprofit ethos too. I mean, it's a startup ethos. It's basically operating from the bottom up and understanding the value of the bottom up. That whether the customers are the bottom or the team is the bottom, but you pay attention to who is actually experiencing the thing over who gets reports about the thing and thinks they understand it.
That's the vital thing, is that you set up an environment where people know what the boundaries are and what the values are and what the objectives are. And they know that within those things that have been set up ahead of time, they have full freedom to make it work. They have full ownership rather than freedom. They have full ownership to make it work within those boundaries. And those boundaries are not going to arbitrarily change overnight and so on. So that's, it's an important part of the job. I think if you don't work at those three levels, you are being dishonest. If you tell people, hey, be nice or believe in yourself and all that, but your boss is still going to, expect old-fashioned behaviors out of you, it doesn't work. Without the teams, all three.
It has to be holistic, because if it's not, nothing's going to change. You're going to have a lot of optimistic people who get all the optimism beaten out of them in 1 month of going back to work, or you're going to have managers who are optimistic and a bunch of people who are like, well, I don't really see the point because I'm just going to get a paycheck either way. And you have, Good. Well said. Great.
So that's the how and the what. The point for our pitch Tuesday, I think, is that we need to get really clear on the where it can go.
Mm-hmm.
I am not sure is important. Well, we can. Yeah, it's a quick one.
Maybe that's like an appendix slide. I wanted us to be clear that we're ready if anyone asks, well, what do you expect this to become? They might not, but we do want to know, what's our big long-term goal, or what's our wild fantasy. So. And
the nice thing for that is that if anybody's interested in that, they can go back to this video and watch that segment. And they have the answer.
Yeah,
so the appendix slide makes sense because I think that's a dilution for where we're trying to go with this, which is action.
Right.
What we want is the action that we want from the FACC. Specifically, so connections to businesses.
The ask.
The ask. Connections to businesses for what?
We probably would want potential candidates for this coaching. So businesses that need our service, that have identified, possibly businesses that we can pitch to so that when they can't self-identify.
So there's two levels there, right? There's U.S. businesses trying to enter France.
Mm-hmm.
Enter or collaborate with France. And who need a cultural translator, basically.
Right. Yeah.
Need somebody to make that cultural glue. Is there also some French businesses?
They're looking to spur innovation, spur some kind of trying to revitalize maybe, or reinvigorate. Or they may well be interested in collaborating with US as well. I mean, I think there's a vice versa to the first bullet point, but yeah, it is sort of, I mean, it's a bit of self-identified. It's a bit of just maybe it's a French startup team that we've heard about. These people are working on this. They haven't been able to crack it. Who can they talk to? Well, they can talk to us for myriad reasons.
Yeah. So those three things make sense. Expats, I think this is the short-term ask and the useful one. Mm-hmm. And the one where you're key, Nate, is the fact that we have this theory. And part of what we're trying to do also is turn that theory, I mean, from personal observation and so on, turn it into a solid set of, well, basically, this topic of what's the secret sauce, what's the American entrepreneurialism, cultural difference, how it can be applied to France. We need to talk to French people, expats, like you said. We'd like to interview French entrepreneurs in Denver.
Yeah. Anyone they can connect us to in Denver or beyond. I'm good
including
with.
Themselves, because I think most of the FACC is French entrepreneurs in Denver, at least a large portion of them.
Yeah. And yeah, I mean, if they are familiar with anyone who's in France, who is, perhaps American, who is utilizing this connection, we'd talk to those folks as well. But yeah, very, very good point.
Potential coaches, people and organizations who perform similar service. I mean, if they know of others who do the same thing or do something similar to that, or things that recoup, we'd love to get in touch. We'd love to talk about collaboration, or at least have some good awareness.
No, we have to do this all by ourselves because it's the way to do things.
And then, of course, in terms of helping us navigate the French government efforts on, I can already see them saying, well, if you call them socially Americain, you're not putting chances in the right place to get help from the French government, but maybe not. The French government efforts in that, in innovation.
I mean, we can make one called the French office too, if they need. We'll do a little tit for tat. I'm good with that. But no, I think the big thing is I would imagine that FACC has their fingers on the pulse of grants and other programs that may exist, so we can start talking to the right people about this. Because, I mean, obviously it would be great to get a little bit of initial runway funding so that we can push this hard all the time.
But honestly, this
also,
is not, the thing is, on the funding side, is that this is not a high cost or high funding business. And I think we have enough to self-fund a lot of this, especially at the start. So it's really more for us. I think the one thing is we need to get the story down pat. We need to broaden our understanding of what it is we're doing and helping with. We have a really strong personal experience and intuition about this. It'd be good if we can move beyond intuition to a lot more evidence and see if this is something others feel
very true. Just one moment. I'll be right back.
Okay.
And I'm back. Okay. So because to your point, the big thing we need is we really need we need the story, and we need connections. We need some relationships so that we can start not just talking to the right people, but also knowing where we can reach out to say, oh hey, you sound like you have a problem. We sound like we have a solution. So let's work together. And we can test it out using the free model that we've discussed previously, or using some iteration of a paid model, and go from there.
Yep. So I think we have a clean ask here for these guys. Mostly, it's a lot of connection that we're looking for from them, and I think that's what they do. So I'm feeling good about this. We can slap this into slides tomorrow and iterate on it. And I'll have some time in the day to do some of that. Great. Let's make sure we share everything as we always do.
Yes.
Anyone the link can view?
I will put it in the show notes for this video.
Sweet, sweet. The other thing then that we needed to, so I think we're happy with this, yeah?
I feel good about it. I'm glad that we were on the same page enough that that it wasn't a long, oh no, this idea won't work at all. So that's good. It's good. I like totally, that. But you and I have made presentations before, so at least we've got a little bit of shared background. So then it's the legal considerations for the disclosure, which comes to the free model aspect. Cool. I added notes. This is on the other public document we have that describes the model. Wherein I also I consolidated a lot of stuff. So if you scroll down, I've thrown many of my old bullet points on services into and underneath all of these sections, with the hope that they are well aligned with one another. So we can go over that another time as well.
Cool.
So legal considerations. I had a conversation with my friend who practices law. The first thing he said was, I have absolutely no idea what the laws are in France about this, and I couldn't even begin to tell you. So we need to know how and when French and American laws apply. Like, if it's a video like this, and part of the team is in France and part of the team is in the US, we probably need two different disclosure agreements that are worded specific to each country's laws around that. And and implies a fair and multi-region use of the content. So I don't know a lot about that. Mainly that came down to kind of discussing with you, based on your experience with these kind of contracts, what we think. So there was that. He did say that the reality TV template, like any sort of contract like that, probably makes the most sense. I was going to try to do some digging this week after we get through the meeting on Tuesday to see if I can find any sort of boilerplate US reality TV contract that we can look at, because I feel like it could be somewhere on LegalZoom or one of those places. They might share something like that, because certainly someone's doing a a reality show, a small short run reality show, or a documentary series, which probably has a very similar sort of tone to it. So those were the two big things. And then he had some lawyery notes about it, which is to say that, you know, we need to be careful about sharing content that can't be replicated, basically, just so we don't give it all away, which I think we're not running any risk at doing. We're going to be transparent.
I appreciate that. I appreciate that thought, and I respectfully completely disagree with it. But
oh, sure, yeah,
we'll see. We've had this discussion before, yeah.
Well, I mean, he even prefaced it with, and this is the very lawyery thing: protect your stuff. And it's like, well, yeah, I think that we can do everything at once, and you know, the note he made around that was the idea that if we're doing these video sessions and you're doing a full video session with a client that's going to be shared broadly, that maybe we would think about things like, if we're always going to do the same exact pattern of stuff, just for the purpose of making the content valuable to people who might want it, that we would edit around repetitive stuff like that to some extent. Stick to the meat. I mean, it is basically just, you know, make sure you're getting the most value out of the session, not just, well, here's the 3 hours that we sat with these folks and whatever. The other thing is being protective of participants' feelings and boundaries, which I think is really, really important. And I'm glad
that's extremely tricky and extremely important. Yes.
Yeah.
This is where the reality TV thing is a template, but also the reality TV. What I know is that in, you know, a lot of reality TV is just cruel. And,
yeah. Well, we're not here to be exploitative about.
That's absolutely not what we want to do.
The purpose is not to say, hey, we made you cry because we figured out that it's the way that your father raised you is the reason why you think that work has to be this way. So we've broken you and we got to show everybody. We don't want to do that, and we're not going to. So that was just, you know, I thought that was a good thought and an important note.
Yeah, it's a very important thought, and we do need to think this through, and we do need to think everything that we do that is in the public sphere in terms of that as well, is how far do we push things and do we risk things. We need to make sure our participants are well informed and well prepared on that, and that their consent is a very informed consent. We need to make sure to have possibly, if we do anything that is that, and if we do our job right, we will do things that will touch people at the core. So have actually some psychological help and some assistance in the place, and have a way of probably being able to protect. So this is very tricky. We need to think that through. Absolutely.
Yeah. So there's that aspect, and then it's also, and he did have a novel idea. Number 4, I thought was very interesting, which is to say, hey, we'll have the whole session recorded. We might not post the whole session on YouTube, but we might archive it on a server so that if someone is a member of the Bureau, either as a past participant or someone coming forward, we might say, hey, you know, we're going to be discussing this in this next week's session with you. We have a really great video session that we've done that was similar, and I'd love for you to check it out before, so you get an idea of what you're going into. So we've got that, and and then I had shared with him a standard media release that I was able to find. It pretty much, it's kind of a non-starter anyway, but you know, there would need bolstering around the sort of things that we're talking about. So if someone breaks down, you know, do we include that as, hey, you know, this is a valuable part of the transformation that comes through this coaching, and therefore we would like you to share it. You know, do we have a opt-in sort of level tiered thing where it's like, hey, you know, as far as I'm concerned, you can record every tear, every scream, every lashing out that I give, and I'll check those boxes on my disclosure. So when we're in an editing process, we know, okay, well, you know, client 62 says go for it. Client 63 says, please don't, you know, I don't want to be seen in emotional states, whatever it is. So it is a complicated thing, but it was good because it brought those things to light in a way that I don't know that we'd thought about it too much, at least not as tangibly. I mean, I definitely thought about, you know, not trying to share their, you know, a client's corporate specific business or proprietary stuff, but when it comes down to human emotions, I think that's important too. So
and I think we need yeah, we're going to need to think that through and really hard. And I think this is why there might be very few cases where clients are completely open to the things being public and free, and that is okay. I think there's lots of other details we need to hit on things that are less central to the actual coaching, but this is good stuff. The point of the supercuts, though, definitely. I mean, my initial vision, which I want changed to be smarter through experience and figuring out what works or not, but is that with a naked starter concept is that everything we do is recorded, and also that you probably would have to be seriously deranged or really passionate to want to watch every single last minute of every meeting we do and everything in terms of the repetitive stuff and so on. So having supercuts in terms of doing, watchable parts of the stuff we do, that makes a lot of sense. And curating eventually an edited version of this, that's, as much as I hate that word, it's more like a show. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
Well, it would. I
love
think
to have.
I think it's more about it's a tool. Like at some point, the supercuts are a tool to say whether it's a marketing tool for us to say here's what we do, or it's a tool to say specifically if this is a type of team problem we have seen happen dozens of times now that we've coached, and here's how we've coached through it, so that there is some versatility and value to it. Like you're watching it because, oh, that does make a lot of sense. I probably still want to talk to them, but I feel like I have a new perspective on this issue that we've been dealing with at my firm. Yeah.
And I'd love for you to go like, well, that looks real nice, but isn't the problem more complicated? And it's like, well, you can go watch the full session if you want to see how that little snippet that we're showing actually were played out.
Right. Yeah, exactly.
It's going to be a little more boring, but have fun,
Yeah. You can do laundry or wash dishes while you're watching. It's fine. Turn to the screen when you hear the yelling.
Okay. So this is good stuff. We definitely need to keep moving on the reality TV examples.
Yeah.
Part of what we had, one of the reality TV shows that approached my family this year, had a very long and very dense and complex code of ethics in terms of how they behave with people. And there's lots of clauses in there. And same thing, of course, we're not going to rip off somebody else's legal documents, but I'll go look at them in terms of making a listing. I keep saying I will. I need to do that. Making a listing.
Well, I'm gonna search for something that's boilerplate as well, because there are important points here, right? Like there's a vast difference between a MTV Real World or Jersey Shore style making.
Right, but the one example I have, for instance, for my daughter is an event where talented young people are invited to participate and compete in a very celebratory and positive and affirming and not at all,
not about arbitrary drama generation.
Right. Much more respectful.
Alcohol and everything else. Yeah.
Respectful and positive and valuing. And even then, it's not easy for kids to not win sometimes. So that's not a bad starter point. Because I agree with you. Yeah, we're not looking for the ones who are like, we're going to use you, we're going to exploit you for ratings, and we want you to not be able to sue later.
Well, that's we don't want that, but we also don't want. I think that there's something so valuable in tone establishment for how coaching is going to work and what it means that we don't necessarily want a team of people who are going to be like, oh, cool, I'm going to be on this. Heaven help us if we reach a point where there's actually a lot of subscribers to this. But if there were, we don't want people who are like, hey, we're doing a startup and we're going to just be like a dramatic team that's always drunk and trashing each other for the purposes of being on your YouTube channel. Like it's a tone set thing too.
So we'll fix that problem if we're ever lucky enough to have it. There's some forward thinking about the kind of tone we want to. I agree with you. Setting the tone correctly is a large part of this as well.
Yeah.
Cool. Excellent.
Great.
So this is a great start. I need to find some time next week to pour over these contracts and get some forward motion on here.
Well, yeah, cool. I figure what we focus on for today and tomorrow is getting the presentation, the deck put together. And then I will spend time next week looking for some boilerplate reality TV contract stuff and other resources that I can find. And then I might even take a look at reorganizing the experiments board. We might just need to rename it to, it's kind of a, everything but the kitchen sink kind of board. It's just, well, what are some things that we need to do but we haven't yet? And if we reorganize it around that idea that it's a running idea / to do eventually list, we can start pulling those things from those to these meetings so that we prepare for the week some thoughts about those topics for the meeting, and then we'll create an accountability loop, and that'll be great. So
sounds good. Yeah, I think we can make it a general, Kanban, and in which we can have experiments and tasks and regular activities and cadences and so on. So yeah,
great, cool. So how do you want to, just so I know, how do you want to do the deck? Because you're really the graphical genius. I am happy to cede direct responsibility for doing creation of the deck to you if you have the time to do it.
Time is an issue, so I'd love your help. The way I'd like your help is to take what we have, put it in a deck, but don't put it in the slides. Put in the presenter's notes. Okay. Chop it up into pieces into presenter's notes on various slides, and then we will put in the slide what is actually needed to support what we're talking about. Okay. Because a presentation is something you have to learn and deliver, and it's the person that's given it that matters. You just need on the slide whatever supports the discussion that's happening.
Right. Sure. Great. I'll create it in Google Slides then.
Yeah, sounds good. And then once you have once you have that basic thing, then I'll jump on it, and we'll and we can iterate together to some degree when we're in the same time zone allows, and otherwise, I'll make some blocks of time in my evenings.
Yeah, we're uniquely strapped for time at this point because it is Tuesday morning for me.
Indeed.
So granted, you will have all of Tuesday to to do your part, so that's good.
Exactly.
The time zones are going to benefit us. But so here's what I'm gonna promise you right now is I'm gonna throw that together today and share it with you so that you have a
when I wake up in the morning, I can take over.
Yeah, and you can go to town on it because Monday I will have to do some of my current day job work.
Yep.
I will pop in. I'll have the document open, so I'll be able to pop in throughout the day and look at stuff, and I can make notes. I can make my on the fly tweaks and whatever.
The main thing I'll need from you and that we need to set up is who talks about which part as well. So in the presenter note, if you want to start taking places and say, okay, Nate says this part, and then we'll need to learn our parts of the speech.
Sure. Yeah, and I'm not extraordinarily worried about that aspect because we have such a good sort of back and forth rapport as it is. I think that we do a good job of making space for each other. As long as we have the notes on there for who's going to talk about it, I think there's a good chance we're both going to have something to add to pretty much everything. But we'll do so carefully, of course, because we don't want to waste anybody at FACC's time. We want to keep this short and sweet for them so that they have time to talk to us about what they see and what they don't see. So,
yeah, exactly. Also, we did not talk to them about the Naked Starter concept and secure their any kind of approval for them for that part. And I think it's too late to do so.
Yeah. So we can talk about how it went on next week's meeting, just so that anybody watching this can have an idea. Because we can certainly go through the presentation as we pitched it, and we'll make notes, I assume, on Tuesday of notes they might have, and then we can go over that. And I think that's adequate at this juncture. I mean, we can't. No one can expect us to show everybody all the time because we have to get a lot of people's permission, and we just discussed that we don't know yet what the specific legal considerations around that are. So we're good.
Cool.
Great.
Good.
Okay. Anything else this week? I guess we're just powering through. It's getting late there too, so you got to go to bed.
I gotta eat some dinner, and prepare for my week. How did you think this meeting went?
I think very well. I feel good. I feel like we're firing on cylinders. Maybe not all cylinders, but on most of them. And that's good.
On the ones we have available.
Yeah. On the available cylinders, we are firing. And yeah, I think this is good because we will be, I think we've most completely in this week's just knocked off the 2 items on the list, on the agenda list for the meeting. And I think we both feel good, and we have somewhere to go right after this. So we have actionable steps going forward, and that's powerful. And plus, I'm very excited for the meeting on Tuesday. So this is going to be really interesting to see what happens, and to, we're gonna get some feedback. So I think we should also prepare ourselves for the fact that we might receive feedback that may not be as optimistic and positive as we are on the idea. And I don't know. It might not be. It might be great. I'm going to just be cautiously optimistic about how the meeting will go, because I think it could go very well.
Yeah, if it goes well, then we'll have to. We need to be aware that there's going to be some contacts thrown our way that we're going to need to bounce on. So it's going to be time consuming. So that's something to set aside. I need to start working on my side of getting more time in my week and more time available for this. So that's
and next week is the week of Thanksgiving here in the US. So I'm probably going to be not doing much on Thursday or Friday work wise of any kind, which I look forward to. But it's going to be a weird time of year for how quickly we can move on stuff until we get to January. And then we'll get back to running full speed. But I'm really proud of what we're doing so far, and I think that this is good stuff. So,
me too.
Yeah,
man.
Cool.
Yep. So it's part of being our ages is to learn how to be patient sometimes.
Yeah. So. Yeah, it's great. It all just really lies in the reciprocity of patience, which is another cultural shift thing, right? That and we might actually consider adding this. This might be too on the nose, but there is something interesting. Like, I'm a person who, if you give me an assignment, my default mode is to do that assignment right the fuck now, as fast as possible and as well as possible, but to get it done and deliver it so that you're not waiting on the work you've asked me to do. And I know that that might be, I don't want to say unique. It might not be the only way that people work. In fact, I know it's not the only way that people work.
Man, so I wish I were that way. My dad was like that, and he was a very successful person, because he was like, if he has something to do, he can't rest until it's done.
Yeah. I'm very much that way. I mean, I just finished editing the last episode of a 26 episode season of podcasts that I've been working on last week, and I really like it. We're not going to get to the point that will post for at least 4 more months. I had plenty of time to put it off very easily, but I could not put it off. So I edited around the clock in my free time whenever I had it for a long time. It's just kind of my default mode, but it's important to recognize, because what I recognize in myself is that makes me sometimes impatient in ways that are unfair, because it's not communicated impatience. It's just an inherent impatience because of comparative, just comparative ideology. And that's part of the culture shift, is saying, hey, just because things take a little while to get done right doesn't mean that someone's doing them poorly. And and that's part of knowing people. And I think that's a big part of the coaching, is
if you
know
give me an
who you're working with.
Yeah, because if you give me an assignment, immediately I go, okay, great. So that's something to put in my head and start thinking and musing about, and thinking through and trying to imagine and having a wonderful time doing in my head over and over, and perfecting and seeing what else comes in and connects to it. And at some point, you better give me a deadline, so I'll stop doing that, because that's the part I love to do.
Right.
Is thinking about the work I'm going to be doing later.
Yeah.
And then you give me a deadline, so that 10 minutes before the deadline, I'll do whatever state it's in at that point. Or 10 minutes after the deadline, but close to it.
Well, sure. Yeah. But I mean, that is the thing.
Minutes or weeks, same thing.
The cultural thing is because it's cultural in that we often set expectations without discussing them with each other.
Yeah.
And it's something that it transcends the office. Like it's a problem that comes up in romantic relationships and friendships too, right? People get into arguments most often because they're thinking, okay, this is important to me, and the other person knows this is important to me. So we have to be at this place at 10:30. I don't understand why you're not ready at 9:30, because I'm ready at 9:30 because I need to leave a half an hour early so that we're there a half an hour early, and you're supposed to know. It's little stuff like that that really is important to establish. So I think that's part of the coaching too, is know everyone. Everyone needs to know each other, how they work, and what each other's expectations are, so that the target never seems to be moving.
My friend Peter from Toronto had a little coaching exercise on that, which is, how will we be together when this happens? And we set up a whole series of this happens, when I disappoint you, when I do something that I didn't talk to you about first, when you're, feeling overwhelmed. How will we be together when these difficult moments happen? And talking about them ahead of time and preparing for them ahead of time and agreeing to, okay, this is how I'd like you to react when this shit happens. Okay, this is what, it's a fantastic thing to do. Because in terms of, enabling that courage, the problem is that dealing with those situations when they arise takes in my mind, it takes courage or anger.
Yeah.
I either have to get angry enough that I'll say something, or I need to get really courageous that I'll bring up something that might, be unpleasant of a confrontation. That's either way. It's a lot of energy. I don't like to be angry. And it's a lot of energy, and negative energy.
Well, and beyond that, if it's let slide until it reaches a boiling over point, you end up dealing with it for days when you didn't need to, when it could have been, a statement early on of what your expectations were, how you, So this is.
So maybe you and I will have that little coaching session together.
Yeah, great.
Be a useful thing.
Okay.
We'll try it out.
Sounds good. All right. Man. Well, have a wonderful evening. I will send you some. I'll send you some deck here while you're asleep, and we'll get cranking on this and get ready to see each other on Tuesday.
Cool.
All right.
Take care, my friend.
All right. You too.
Love
Goodbye
you.
for now.